When do systems or techniques help us, and when do they get in our way? And the first place to start is hopefully obvious, that any system, any technique is intended to serve you, to make things better than the status quo. The second thing, in most cases, there's a learning curve. For example, if you switch from a Macintosh to a PC, if there's a better program on the PC, it may be worth the switch and vice versa, but there will be a learning curve. And because there's a learning curve, because there's a limited amount of time, I think it's useful to expect and to look for 10x results. Meaning, if I switch from here to here and go through this learning curve and buy this object or buy this computer, can I see, a tenfold increase? Is that likely based on the data available? Now, if it's not, in many cases, it's better to just carry on what you're doing, although growth can be fun. Now, if it is likely to improve things based on what you've heard in a significant way, and it's worth noting that to create a peak experience or a high state for a day, an hour, a weekend is far easier than to see sustained results over time, to maintain that high state, or to have that high state translate into a sustainable return on investment. So, getting together in a group with like-minded people, it's pretty easy to do a series of exercises, raise adrenaline, raise dopamine, raise oxytocin, etc., and feel incredible, meaning 10 times better than you would normally. And in that state, with a group of people, to have a lot of peak, experiences and interactions. Now, to create and do that alone is much harder, and to sustain it, week after week is incredibly unusual. So you don't want to confuse those two things. I went to a workshop, I felt amazing, etc., and therefore my life will change. Good to check in a year later and see, what's happened with that state. Other things, for example, I wrote a book that marketed my local business to, a variety of different demographics, and that book, without any positive attitude or any effort on my part, has consistently brought in $100,000 to $200,000 in new revenue every single year. And so you'd say, well, that's, spending the 3 months it took to put that together about 10 years ago. Well, it's already, generated more than $2 or $3 million worth of work that wouldn't otherwise be there. So, that's a definite 10x return on the 3 months. If you can turn 3 months into $2 or $3 million with very little effort, that's very useful. Now, a system is a refraction of the possibility field of the one, meaning it doesn't exist until you put it into language. And you can put it into language and create it in just about any way you want. But it's got to take you around the circle, right? So that system takes you around the circle, but so does this system, right? And so does this system, right? You have to go around the circle because a process, you think of an inhale and an exhale. Now you can inhale, you can do that system, but you've got to complete the circle. You can also do, you can create any system of refracting the cycle, the circle. You buy something, you sell something. If you buy it and you don't sell it, it doesn't complete the circle, you don't have a business. If you sell it and don't buy it, again, you have angry customers, where's our product? You don't complete the cycle. So a system is a series of steps to complete the circle, to complete the cycle. And it's, an optimal system helps you avoid shortcuts, because this tends to be a pretty rocky system. Like if you imagine the system as wheels on a car, right? That's a very difficult wheel to take a drive in. A half wheel. It's great on when this part is on the road, but when you get to this flat area, it's a shock. It's smooth riding, jolt, smooth riding, jolt. And so a good system has a certain amount of symmetry, a certain amount of balance, and covers all the bases, and is relatively efficient. Like the more efficient the system, and this is like a wheel, right? The more efficient the system, the more energy is conserved as you go through it. Now, the problem with an incredibly symmetrical sphere, which is the ultimate system, is it has an infinite number of points, and you can't keep track of them all. So systems are usually refracted into like 7. 7 tends to be a number that, most people, don't want to be part of a process that takes more than about 7 steps. And so it's a little bit bumpy at those corner points, but it takes you through the territory. Now, our ability to hold a system in mind is a challenge of consciousness. And we may or may not, be able to hold a 10, 20, 30-point system in mind. If you have something like the Enneagram, that's a 9-point system. If you have astrology, it's quite a complex system because you have your basic zodiac sign, then you have your various signs around the moon, then you have various planets that cycle through, some every 10 years, some every 28 years. There's a whole variety of different dynamics that are going on, each of which, as a variable, change the output. And so, when you get into these incredibly, complex systems with multiple things happening multiple times, and you try and see, well, is this happening right here while this is happening, or is this happening right here while this is happening? And it's a very challenging system to keep track of. It's a complex system. Well, in many ways, the more complex the system, the less each individual bit makes, has influence. There's also systems of choice. Like that's a system. Basically, I choose what I want and I go for it. That's pretty direct. No one has any doubt about that. I choose what I want and I go for it. And what does going for it look? Well, I take every step that I can think of that would take me towards that goal, and then I analyze and see how I'm doing, and then I do it some more. And I just go for it, right? I just spend, all my energy, all my time focused on that goal, taking it forward. Well, that's like a bit of a water jet, it's very focused, so you make good headway, you have good momentum. It's problematic if you've got the goal wrong, right? There's lots of people that set their goal on, I want to make lots of money, and they do, and then they discover, it's not very satisfying to just have lots of money just to have lots of money. And what do you do next? Well, first of all, there's never enough, right? So you become a millionaire. Well, now you have to become a billionaire. Now you have to climb the Forbes 400 list. You were number 83, but okay, so now you're number one. You're the richest person. And well, you've got a lot more media critiquing you. Everything that you do wrong, is going to be analyzed. Richest person in the world is rude to his wife. Richest person in the world forgot to pay his taxes. I mean, these are the types of things. Like next door neighbor, they forgot to pay their taxes too. The whole neighborhood is filled with marital conflict, but somehow it's newsworthy when it's tied into that. So what have you really accomplished, right? And then what, right? So it's, I guess if attention is your goal, then what do you do when everyone's turned to you? Does it turn into an addiction? I need more and I need more. Do you need everyone to agree with you? The more public you are, the higher you rank in any cult system, the more you will have vehement opposition as well as vehement support, right? So you become a figurehead for the fact that every cult is divided at some level, and so different people see. So when your system is just go for it, and that's not a bad place to start, particularly when you're dealing with pretty obvious goals, like I want to make enough money to be able to move out of the house and pay rent. Can't go wrong there. I want to be able to afford a car or afford health insurance, et cetera. It's not, you can't go wrong there. I want to buy a fifth house and then pay an entire staff to maintain the fifth house that when I'm barely spending time in the other four houses. There is definitely a point of diminishing return where you spend more energy and experience less value. So I think that what's useful to understand, because we can be lost in systems, is that, first of all, many systems are not useful to us doing what we want to do at a given point. Secondly, there are many systems about us that are more important than the systems about, for example, astrology or Enneagram. And those are good examples for me personally. I've read a couple of books on the Enneagram. I've talked for 5 or 10 hours about the Enneagram with different friends who are interested in the Enneagram. And I've also attended a workshop on the Enneagram. And it's not terribly useful. It provides maybe 5 or 10% possibility for increased awareness about certain patterns. But, if you want to be successful in your life, if you want to have a great relationship, and you've decided to do that at a deep level, and you're doing that with your being and with your time and energy, that's a lot more important than, the various systems in the Enneagram. And if you're not making an effort and haven't deeply decided to have a good relationship, that's a lot more important than whether you're Enneagram compatible. The same is true with astrology. I think it's like mildly useful to understand a few general themes, but I have never found it useful to try and time anything I want to do. Like, I'm very good at getting things done when I want to get them done. So the main thing that's useful for me would be more of a system of sorting out what my goals are and why, and then doing them. That's a good system. What are my goals and why? And then what are my priorities? And then go do them. That's a system that's very simple. I can do it at any time of the year. I can do it day and night. I can do it any time I want to get focus. And those 3 steps, let me sit down, look at all my possible goals, pick some, and then prioritize them and think about that and get aligned, and then go for those goals. That is, a system that has resulted in thousands of goals being accomplished. And then, a nice little sub-step is to, under each goal, then do an action bullet point of these are the 3, 4, 5, 10 steps that I will need to take to achieve this goal. And then let's do a few of them right now. If the goal is the most important thing, you should be working on the most important thing right now. So get on with it. Do that right now. 10 times, 20 times more useful than any kind of an astrological type system for me. Meaning some people would look at their astrological chart and then say, oh, well, it's not the right time of the year to take action. Bullshit, right? Take action right now, get it done right now, achieve the goal. Why not? Or other people said, oh, I need to talk with this person, but, Mercury is retrograde. That's, no. You get clear on what you have to say. Pick someone who's capable of processing the data and find a good time in your schedule. I've never not been able to have a good conversation with a competent person when Mercury is retrograde. And there's tons of flaky people who you can't have a conversation with at any point of the year, but who love to hang on to, oh, no doubt we could have a great conversation, except Mercury is retrograde. That's the, and that brings me to another point around, systems. Do you externalize a system or do you externalize your power with a system, or do you internalize it? Now, there are things that, are worth knowing in the external, world. For example, in investing in growth stocks, interest rates have a very high correlation, meaning growth stocks such as Google and Amazon decrease when interest rates get high. And so if you want to buy them at a good price, that's a good time to buy them. And when interest rates are close to zero, they tend to be, very, trade for very high multiples. The stock price is quite high. It's a good time to sell them, So those types of things are useful externals. Generally speaking, I think it's good to pay close attention to yourself and to the other people involved and have attunement. Like, oh, you've got a headache. Let's not talk about this thing that we don't need to talk about right now. Okay, fine. How about tomorrow, right? As opposed to Mercury will be retrograde tomorrow. Let's push this through because we don't want to have this conversation when Mercury is, see, that's, you're listening more to what's going on. Or if you get stuck in something like, I want to do this and I'm stuck, right? Well, that's what's important to understand. What's the stuck? I just don't want to do it. And I can't make myself do it. Well, then you want to look at strategies such as, how about for 1 minute? Like, how about I do this thing for 1 minute, if it's a good thing to do, and for some reason, can I just push myself to do it for 1 minute? Okay, I'll do a 1 minute run. Trying to go to the gym. I don't want to go to the gym. Okay, let's go running down the street for 1 minute. How's that? Okay. How does it feel now? You've done it for 1 minute. How about 3 minutes? 1 minute more. Would you run back? You ran here for a minute. Will you run back for a minute, or do you want to walk, right? Well, that's breaking it down into, sizes, or I just can't get around to my retirement fund or whatever. Well, how about $5? Let's put $5 in a piggy bank right now. $1, 50 cents, right? Okay, we've got a savings protocol. Anytime I think that thought, I'm going to put at least 50 cents in that, and then, before it gets to $100, I'll deposit it somewhere useful, that's better than nothing. Well, that's a good way to get incrementally into something like, I don't want to put $10,000 in my retirement right now, so I'll do absolutely nothing. You can go incrementally into something, but just remember that ultimately, the willingness, the desire, the clarity, the willingness to get better, to be focused, to prioritize, to take action, generally transcends every system in the long run. Meaning you can start out poor without knowing the language, without an education, and if you focus on working hard and saving money, you can do a better job of saving money than many Ivy League, well-endowed people that consistently lose portions of their net worth every single year, that spend more money than they make, and that have a wonderful setup, but quickly, or a lottery winner, that starts off with everything but ends up bankrupt. So, obviously it's a nice setup if you win the lottery, but statistically, lottery winners end up in debt, bankrupt, and less happy, right? Partly because they learn that money doesn't fix everything. Money creates its own set of problems that they discover that they didn't have to deal with before. And so now they can't pretend that if they went out and earned money, they would have money without any of those problems. So, it's not, I guess the core message is focus on you taking good steps that are within your ability every single day towards the things that you value the most, and allow, synchronicities, opportunities, support, new ideas, inspiration to come your way and serve you. Allow different systems to serve you. Oh, I'll use that system for this time. Oh, this girlfriend is using astrology to pick me. I'll take that. Great. Wonderful. Let astrology create a great relationship. But I'm not going to depend on astrology to sustain that relationship. I'm going to take the time to get to know what makes her feel loved and supported, get to know what her pain points are, talk about different patterns that we want to create. I'm going to do those things rather than, look at astrology. But astrology brought her into the relationship. Fantastic. Enneagram, they think there's a great connection here. Wonderful. But the Enneagram is, there's tons of relationships that break up that have good indicators that were fate, that were, and so it's really about taking initiative and understanding that for the most part, these systems are not more important than you. You're the most important system. Your prioritization, willingness to see and process things and take action, that's the most important system, be that the action of doing daily breath work, the action of doing daily yoga, the action of going for a run, or the action of making love by mapping out the territory that you and a given person experience love within. It's easy for you to recognize and experience love when it comes in those ways, and creating it together. Let's do tonight all about making you feel loved. How do we do? What can we do there? These are things I enjoy about that. Let's flip and do it the other way. Let's make love the other way, where I feel completely and totally loved.